What's up, 49er Faithful? We are back with another episode of the 49ers Web Zone Know How to podcast. We got Brian, we got Al, I'm Zain, and I finally get to do an intro because it is a victory podcast. Man, is there anything that gets the Niners right better than the Los Angeles Rams? I mean, like clockwork. Every time the sky is falling and we think this team is dead in the water, they'll have a terrible performance the previous week, and they come out against the Rams and they play as good of at least a half of football, the second half, as I've seen them play the entire year. All three phases: offense, defense, special teams. Jimmy has looked the best I've seen him look ever. Frankly, I have not seen him look better than he looked today. Christian McCaffrey, instant offense. I can't wait to talk about that. But guys, let's unpack this. Just a really, really fun win today. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, listen, I'm not here to try and take too much credit because I'm not, but I am. These arrived on Friday. It's my new game day kicks. So I rocked these today, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the offense put up 31 points today. So, like I said, not trying to take too much credit, but my dope Jordan 1s arrived on Friday, and hey, 31-14, here we go.
Brian Rennick, so I appreciate it.
For those who can't see, Brian Rennick is head to toe in red and gold right now. 49ers hat.
Yeah, I'm decked
49ers looking sneakers. He's got was that Vernon Davis? George Kittle?
That's Kittle, yeah.
George Kittle jersey on. Both 85. It's all good. You can't go wrong either way. Yeah, that's right. Nothing cures the 49ers ills like playing the Rams. And look, I didn't want to say that they were going to win the game like this, but in the back of my mind, I kind of knew it was going to happen. And I don't want to talk too much trash because they did lose in the NFC Championship game to them, but it's just been complete ownage of this Rams team for the last 4 years. What is it, 8 in a row now? And today was, and we'll get into the specific performances, but it was kind of typical. It was close, and then in the end, the 49ers just own them, just absolutely own them. The Rams are I think the Rams stink. I think they're really bad. They may turn it around, but you're talking 118 points in 7 games for them now. They can't run the ball ever. They had 21 carries for 56 yards today. I thought Van Jefferson coming back might help a little bit, but it didn't. They didn't even target him.
Did he play in this game?
I saw him out there, but he wasn't targeted at all. Higbee gets banged up early, but they just looked. Yeah, if Kupp's not doing anything, this team just can't do anything. So, yeah, today I kind of want to. We all hate the Rams, and I kind of just want to pour salt in the wounds today. It just felt like, yeah, you know what, your team's a joke. Like every time you come up against the Niners, it's just the same stuff. You can't beat them. And I know they beat them in the NFC Championship game. So if you're a Rams fan listening to this, you're probably like, shut up, Al. But listen, the Niners just owned it. And we'll talk, like I said, there's a couple guys I really want to highlight today. But listen, it was a good win for the team.
You know what this team did? And it feels like it's the first time that they've done it all season. You know what they did? They made adjustments. And I was so proud of them. I was so proud. I was like, look, guys, let's do something out of our comfort zone. I tweeted this. Let's get out of our comfort zone. Let's make some adjustments, right? Let's not just try and stick to the same thing. And I'll tell you what, man, they came out in the second half, and the adjustments that D'Amico Ryans made at halftime to combat that quick passing game that really was, owning the defense in the first half, just a thing of beauty. And then I don't know that the offense made a ton of adjustments, but I do think that Kyle Shanahan, obviously Christian McCaffrey, the passing touchdown, Shanahan was in his bag a little bit. I believe that is the same exact play that they ran against them in week 18 last year, except instead of Debo throwing it to Jennings, it was McCaffrey throwing it to Ayuk. But it was a game. This is a game that you expect this team to have, right? This is a game where you go up against an opponent that is arguably inferior, right? The Rams are still the defending Super Bowl champions. Let's give them their flowers. They look nothing like they did last year, right? And so there is that. There is that. But that team still has Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball. It still has Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson and Tyler Higbee. It is an offense that should, it should be good. They cannot run the ball, which has made them one-dimensional and it's made it difficult for them to be good. But this is a game that you would hope to see from a team like the 49ers, even with the injuries that they have. So it was just nice to see.
Yeah, it was a game when McCaffrey threw the pass for the touchdown to Ayuk. I said, finally finally something creative. You know, it's what we've been saying forever. Just do something funky. I always go back to that Saints game when they were throwing passes like that and the pitch to Juszczyk. Just Kyle, pull something out. And he did finally, and it was great to see, and it was exciting. And I guess I want to transition into McCaffrey here because we'd be nuts if we didn't make him a story. I mean, we always talk about the talent on this team, but Debo had a lot of Superman games last year. But other than that, like, you're waiting for a player to kind of really step up. We went for Kittle to step up. We went for Ayuk to have a big game, and Ayuk's been great lately, but a huge game. In a game like McCaffrey had today, that was a star in the NFL. Just having a day. And it was great to see. He obviously throws a 34-yard touchdown pass. He has 18 carries for 94 yards and score, and 8 catches for 55 yards and a score. So he had 26 touches, 149 yards, not counting the pass, and 3 total touchdowns, including the touchdown pass. It was just a day he's a star. He played like a star. And without him, it's probably a different game. So I tweeted this, and it may seem, oh, yeah, you're being dramatic. That trade may have saved this team season. When you go into moving forward and just how they're going to have to play teams and how they're going to have to score, having that guy do what he did, if that continues, and once you put Debo back in the mix, it might have saved the season to me.
I just want to point this out, and then Zain, I'll give the floor just to, again, kind of piggyback on what you were talking about. Jennifer Lee Chan tweeted this out 44 minutes ago. McCaffrey's 183 all-purpose yards, which includes the passing, the yards he got on the throw, accounted for 49.7% of the 49ers' 368 total yards. So quite literally, he accounted for 50% of the offense that they created in this game. And that's just unreal.
That's fantastic. I think that, like, you know, when you make that trade and when you bring a guy of that caliber on your team, this is what you expect, right? You expect that he's going to have this effect on your offense. It seemed to open everything else up. Every time he touched the ball, he was gaining 5 yards, right? There was a couple of exceptions where he took a draw play and took a loss or to gain 1 or 2 yards, but you have to account for him. There was one throw that Jimmy had up the seam to Kittle where, like, McCaffrey just ran an angle route just underneath and cleared out like the entire middle of the field for Kittle. It was in the second half. And it was just that stuff only happens when you have a Christian McCaffrey on your team. And the fact that they did it without Debo, like you mentioned, I mean, it just goes to show you that when you have blue chip players on your team, you can use them in ways that can affect the game, like in multiple types of ways, right? Like whether you want to motion them out, whether you want to actually give them the ball, the defense will have to account for them no matter what. And I mean, like, you know, is this sustainable to you guys? I'm going to open up to you. Like, do you think this is actually sustainable, like the way that they use Christian McCaffrey today? Or do you think that like that Saints game, it was like just like a 1-game thing and they'll just kind of go back to their normal sort of whatever normal was after the bye week?
Well, that's the big question, right? And that's what we've been critical of, is the inconsistencies and the way Kyle's kind of maybe deployed some of these weapons that he has. And when you see what McCaffrey did today, and when Debo does come back, with Kittle and with Ayuk, how do you stop that? There's really not an excuse for this team not to come out and put up 28, 30 points a game now with it. And I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. We'll see, because this team has been consistently inconsistent. So I'm not going too crazy after this win. It was a great win. And like you said, Brian, I think the fact that they made adjustments, especially on the defensive end, it was like, whoa, like, yeah, you guys did kind of everything right today, but I still got to see more, man. Like I said last time, I'm not going to go too crazy over this. We'll see how they come out after the bye. We'll see if they can get a few wins together. We'll see if they can be consistent. But one more thing on the McCaffrey day, he's the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson in 2005 to catch, throw for, and rush for a touchdown in the same game.
And only the third to do it. And that 3 is Walter Payton, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Christian McCaffrey.
Pretty good company.
Pretty good company. Yeah.
Yep.
To answer your question, Zain, obviously this is not sustainable in that Christian McCaffrey cannot account for 50% of your total yards game in and game out. That obviously is unsustainable. But this was very, very reminiscent of a handful of Debo games last year, right? Where it was a must-win situation, and Kyle Shanahan looked at Debo and said, put this team on your back. And Debo did. And he did it multiple games. This was one game for Christian McCaffrey. I'd argue there's at least 3 last year that Debo did it en route to that historically good performance from him last year. But the other thing is, like you said, Al, there are too many weapons on this team for there to be a situation like this where a player accounts for 50% of your total yards. If you've got an offense that can put Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and Kyle Juszczyk, Ross Dwelly, whatever, whoever else you want to put out there. If that's who you're trotting out game in and game out, no excuses. And I said this, I said this when the trade happened. Whether he meant to or not, Kyle Shanahan left himself with no excuses now by making this trade, right? He's just 100%. There are no more excuses. No more excuses for poor offensive performances. No more excuses for, stagnant second halves. There's just none. And today looked great. It really did. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Will not. And you know who else looked really good today? Jimmy Garoppolo, who had at least 2 should-be interceptions that were dropped. Hey, that's going to happen, right? But outside of that throw to McCaffrey for the touchdown, beautiful throw. Great throw. Threw with anticipation, saw him as his outlet, right? Which is another actually probably benefit that we didn't talk about enough with Christian McCaffrey is McCaffrey gives Garoppolo a viable outlet when a play breaks down, which the rest of the running back room hasn't really given him or really ever given him. There has never been a receiving back the caliber of Christian McCaffrey since since Shanahan has been here. I mean, you could argue Tevin Coleman is a good receiving back, but he wasn't featured that much like that. Mm-hmm. So there was that. Somebody in the chat said the throw to Kittle was better. I said the same thing to my buddy Tim. Tim was a collegiate level quarterback, so he's played the position. The one thing he pointed out was Jimmy, when he threw that ball to Kittle, did not account for Taylor Rapp, who had started to get depth and get back towards Kittle. The throw made it, but just barely over his hand. You could argue it was ill-timed. I thought that Rapp didn't really start to creep back until Jimmy cocked the throw. So it felt like it was the right decision. I'm not going to say it wasn't, but there have been a lot of times where Jimmy would have thrown an interception on that. So you got to give him kudos. So yeah, the throw to Kittle, great. The throw to McCaffrey for the touchdown, great. Only a handful of plays this game where you're like, yikes, that's not great. But again, props to the offense for coming out and putting up 21 points in the second half and outscoring their scoring average by 11 points, right? They've been coming in averaging about 20 points a game. Yep. And, they put up 31. There were no defensive touchdowns or special teams touchdowns. This was 31 points from the offense. Mm-hmm. And you got to give them flowers for that.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, this is like the version of the Niners that everybody hoped to see starting the year, right? Like Super Bowl contending 49ers. They made very few mistakes. The beginning of the game on defense started off a little shaky. They took some penalties down by the goal line. They allowed long sustaining drives, but I think it's more so like that's just a function of injuries right now with that unit. I think that once they'll be a very different looking unit after the bye, after they get those bodies back. But, it started out very much looking like, the championship game last year where, the Rams and the Niners, they were just going back and forth. Rams got on top. Niners were kind of fighting back. And especially with the way that they kind of went ahead 17-14, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, are we going to get a repeat of what happened last year? They went up and then they eventually went up by 10 points. And I was like, well, Kyle and 10-point leads right in the fourth quarter, and they ended up not even needing that. So I don't know, guys. It was just like I know that we could say a lot, but it was just nice to win. It's nice, like it's been a while since they won. It's been 3 weeks since we've been able to talk about this team in a positive light, and it's nice to be able to do that. But I mean, like I'm with Al. Like it's just so hard to know what you're going to get from them week in, week out. If you got them from this every single week, this is like a shoo-in for a championship caliber team. Like this is like you put them in the Super Bowl in February. Because they are so good when they are on, they are so good, but their issue is from week to week they can't bring it. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, I'm almost sad that the bye is coming.
Oh, you broke up there a little bit, Zain.
But I'm also they'll be getting. I'm also happy that they'll be getting guys back from the bye.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's a decent. We're halfway through the season. It's a pretty good time to rest up and maybe hopefully get Debo healthy. But yeah, early in that game, I was starting to get pissed. I was like, here we go again. Especially in that first drive when you had the 2 penalties. I'm like, here we go with disciplined football. In those 2 back-to-back drives, the Rams put 2 long drives together, and then you have Warren Burks on Cup, and you're like, what are you doing? But then they adjusted. They adjusted in the second half. The defense dominated. The Rams couldn't do anything. Cup didn't have a catch until the end. And I want to talk about stupid coach decisions later too, by the way. Remind me about what the Rams did at the end of that game. But he didn't have a catch until the very last play of the game. That was garbage time. So they did a good job getting him out of there in the second half. They were putting pressure on Stafford, which they didn't do in the first half. And the Rams looked lost. And when the Niners are like that, when the defense is doing that, they're a dangerous team. So credit to DeMeco Ryans, who took some heat last week, and he was taking heat in the first half this week too. And he made the correct adjustments. Not having Greenlaw out there was big. They're going to miss Mosley the whole season. Not having Armstead is huge, especially for the defending the run. And he made the right adjustments. And look, only 14 points against any NFL team is good. So kudos to them for that.
Yeah, and the defense, especially in the second half, was so dominant and so suffocating to the Rams offense that you get a sign of life first down to Allen Robinson, and he immediately gets that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty by getting in the face of Hufanga, who quite literally didn't say anything, didn't do anything. He was just getting up from the tackle, and Robinson gets in his face and signals the first down, and then all of a sudden you get that penalty. And while that is
the ball, I think that's why Robinson got pissed. Funga tried to yank the ball when he was on the ground. I think that's why he got pissed.
Sure, but the rules. Like again, everybody knows the rules, right? If you direct taunting at a player, you're going to get flagged, and there's a ref right there. And part of that is just being frustrated by the fact that you haven't been able to move the ball at all in the second half. At one point there was a graphic on the screen that Stafford was 2 of 8 for like less than 20 yards well into the fourth quarter of that game. And so, yeah, like you said, kudos to DeMeco Ryans for making some adjustments, because, they really did get, I'm not going to say get their ass handed to them, but the Rams were the aggressor in the first half. They had that really long drive, that 17-play drive for a touchdown, which ate, I think, almost 10 minutes off the clock in the first half. And you're just like, man, like you can't afford to continue to have those. And that was the one thing that this defense has been, for the most part, all season, has been good at limiting explosive plays. And the Rams still didn't have any explosive plays. They had that play to Higbee in the second half that likely should have been a touchdown if Higbee could have held on to it. Stafford did throw it slightly behind him, but he still got both hands on it. Great play design. And at the very least, he would have been into 49ers territory. But, it felt like there were some missed tackles in the first half, and it seems like they cleaned that up a little bit. And it also just felt like Fred Warner and the defense came out in the second half and said, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. This quick game isn't gonna be the thing that gets us. And so, yeah, I mean, we talk all the time about a lack of adjustment, and the fact that they made it, I thought was huge. And one of the things that I took away, the other thing that I really like to see, and we talked about this, we talked about the special teams ranking on our last episode, that they were currently 26th in DVOA, and a lot of that had to do with kickoff coverage, and then the one blocked field goal that they had, which carries a lot of weight, whatever, regardless. I really loved seeing them kick touchbacks today. Like, hey, great job. Way to adjust. Way to recognize that your kickoff coverage is poor. So let's go ahead and just kick it through the end zone and live to see another day. So I liked that adjustment as well. So two great signs for me.
You guys concerned at all about the 2 McCaffrey fumbles? I mean, hey, Ray actually caught something, right? He caught the McCaffrey fumble.
I can't believe he hung out onto that ball.
But well. I mean,
that was what I found.
Yeah, you guys.
There were a couple things. McCaffrey had those what they called the first one incomplete, and then he had the one that bounced up in the air and laid in Ray's hands, and then Jimmy had a couple Jimmy moments. It's part of it, and that's. But it's funny you say that, Zain, because that's true. Like, where this team frustrates you is the inconsistencies in the undisciplined play, right? So I think in their 4 losses, they have 11 turnovers, and in their 4 wins, they have 1. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So again, this game, they don't commit any turnovers. They almost do, but they don't, and they win. And that's the key to them. So am I concerned about it? No, I don't necessarily am concerned with McCaffrey, just as the team with the whole. Yeah, because they're inconsistent. So I'm definitely concerned that they need to be more consistent moving forward, and that stuff can still pop up moving forward, because when this team loses, it's generally because they shoot themselves in the foot. So until they can prove to me that they aren't going to do that for an extended period of time, I'm always going to kind of have it in the back of my head, like, when's the other shoe going to drop? Again, this is great. Celebrate this win. It's a good feeling going into the bye, playing a talented but banged up Chargers team when you get out of there. But I'm not buying anything. I'm not buying. You talk to me in about a month and see where we are, and then I'll tell you what I'm buying at that point.
I think that's fair. And, it's hard to say because, like, it's only Christian McCaffrey's second week. The bye, I think, will be the big install, if you want to call it, like, for the playbook. And I think that he'll probably get more of a load after the bye. Like we saw Jeff Wilson Jr. start the game and they kind of platoon in there. I think we'll see Christian McCaffrey get the lion's share of carries after the bye. But I do want to really quickly discuss everybody's favorite topic, quarterback, because we have to. Jimmy Garoppolo, he was pretty good today. Had a couple of Jimmy moments, like you said, Al. The dime to McCaffrey, the dime to Kittle, and the dime to Dwelly as well. I mean, he was wide open. There's nobody around him. But, if he plays this type of football, this brand of football, the team will go a really long way because he's not turning it over. He's moving the chains. He's getting the ball in the hands of playmakers. McCaffrey had 8 catches today, right? And that's one thing that has been missing for a long time from a 49ers offense is the running back's ability to catch the ball and run with it. And they're supplementing these running plays by just dumping it off to the running backs, right? And I love that because those are essentially free yards, right? Like defenders will just give up checkdowns all day in fear of giving up something bigger, right? So what they did today, I hope, and I think is going to be a blueprint for what you see in the future with getting Christian McCaffrey the ball, like just as a safety outlet. And it's something that I've wanted Kyle to do in his offense like for forever, but they just have never really had a guy that has been able to handle the ball like this, at least catching the ball out of the backfield. So this, I think, will add a different element into the quarterback play, just having an outlet and a safety outlet. And I hope those interception numbers will come down from what they have been. They're already down this year as they were, but I think that the emergence of Christian McCaffrey, on this offense as a real piece, as you saw today, is only going to help the quarterbacks, both Jimmy and Trey, next year, right, going forward.
Yeah, Jimmy to me, he played really well today. I thought he had a terrific game overall. The throw to Kittle, I don't. You mentioned Brian, maybe he threw a little bit later or whatever, but like I thought that was one of the better throws I've seen him make. Like Jimmy doesn't usually make a throw where he drops it over a defender, in the back of the end zone like that. The throw he made to McCaffrey, like you talked about earlier for the touchdown too, there was pressure. He kind of steps up, and it looked to me, I don't know what the play was, but it looked to me like McCaffrey was just supposed to go out in the flat on that play, and he was there, and he sees the pressure, and he runs towards the end zone, and Jimmy puts the ball up, makes a good throw on him, and McCaffrey makes a great catch going down. So I was happy with Jimmy today, but again, we've seen this. We've seen Jimmy play pretty well, and then we've seen Jimmy come out and shit the bed, or Jimmy come out and make a really bad turnover. So I'm thrilled he had a good game. Talk to me in a month. And even then, we kind of know what Garoppolo is. But the good thing for Jimmy is he has so many weapons now. He just has to play point guard. That's all he's got to do. Just distribute. He shouldn't have to win the game with that many pieces around him, at least not most weeks. There should be enough for him. The defense should typically be good enough, and there's enough pieces around him where I think he can just kind of play point guard and don't screw it up.
100%, and Zain is on dad duty. He had to drop out, so it'll just be Al and I the rest of the way. But the interesting thing, and Zain said this, about the bye, and we'll see. There will probably be a little bit more install when it comes to adding Christian McCaffrey to the offense over the other thing that I thought was interesting this week is, one of the things that I haven't been able to really wrap my brain around is this idea that the 49ers spent an entire offseason crafting an offense for Trey Lance. And then with Trey Lance going down and Jimmy Garoppolo coming in, it's been a difficult transition from that offense to an offense that is more suited for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I've always, like I said, but not been able to really wrap my head around that idea because one, are you telling me that you fundamentally changed your offense so much with Trey Lance that a lot of what you wanted to do, Jimmy Garoppolo is incapable of doing? I think maybe I could buy that, right? But I also don't buy the idea of Kyle Shanahan fundamentally altering his offense for a quarterback that he drafted because he felt like he fit his offense well enough and added just that little extra dynamic of running that it just really kind of unlocked more of his offense as opposed to needing to fundamentally alter it. And then the other thing was Jimmy Garoppolo has been QB1 for this team for the past 4 seasons. Like, how is it that difficult to transition back to calling plays for that guy, even though you didn't anticipate doing it? It didn't anticipate doing it then. But somebody asked Kyle Shanahan that question this week. And he basically said, yeah, it's been a really tough transition. And I was trying to find the quotes. It came from one of his press availabilities this week, and I couldn't find it while we were talking here. But the interesting thing is, well, if it's been that difficult, what I'm wondering is if we see coming out of the bye just a really different offense in the second half of the season moving forward, because they get that extra week to kind of install some of, I guess, what they used to, right? Because, part of what he said was, blocking assignments, things like that. It's all different when you go from a quarterback who can extend the play with his legs versus a quarterback who essentially, if the play breaks down in the pocket, it's either going to be a turnover or an incomplete pass. And so that's going to be interesting to see. But, I think this team desperately needed this momentum going into the bye, because if they went into this game and lost and went into the bye at 3-5, even though that's where they were last year, it would just feel different than last year, right? It would just feel different. And it would feel different because this team is better than the team last year. There's just so much more talent on both sides of the ball. Not that the team wasn't talented last year, but you've got Mooney Ward on the other side when you didn't have a shutdown corner before. You've got these extra pieces at edge rusher on the defense. You've got on offense, you've got another year of Brandon Ayuk. You've got now Christian McCaffrey. You've got all of these pieces that genuinely make you better. And to be at the same spot, I think would have been really defeating to a lot of players in that locker room, because whether they should be reading the press clippings or not, I guarantee that squad thinks that they should be in the Super Bowl this year. And rightfully so. They absolutely should. They should feel that way, especially when you look at the landscape of the NFC. We talked about the Giants, at 6-1. They lost today to the Seahawks. Seahawks still have first place in the NFC West, which is yikes. But again, the 49ers 3-0 in the NFC West. They've got 3 games left.
Yep.
And so, I'm not really super worried about the Seahawks, but Geno Smith is playing incredibly well. Pete Carroll has that team overachieving. We'll see how things go for them down the stretch. But
yeah, Kenneth Walker is going to be
Kenneth Walker. Good, yeah, he looks like the real deal.
Good running back.
He I'm not going to say he's the second coming of beast mode, but he looks pretty damn good. So
yeah, he stays healthy. He's going to be a good back for a long time.
Their whole draft class, they hit an absolute home run.
Yep.
With two rookie tackles who are playing incredibly well. You've got Kenneth Walker. You've got two late round corners that you're starting, right, that are playing well. Like they're having a hell of a run right now. But you look at this NFC, and you got to think, as you look around that locker room, you got to look at the rest and go, who is better than us? Who is better than, who has more talent in their locker room than us? And I don't know that there is a team in the NFC that does. You could argue the Eagles. The
I
Eagles
think
look
the
pretty
Eagles
good, and
are right
Hurts
there,
is playing really well. You know, and the Eagles have the same kind of defensive line the 49ers do, but
100%.
but a better offensive line, arguably.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing with the Eagles. The Eagles are really good in the trenches, and
yeah.
the Eagles got some serious playmakers, and the quarterback's playing well. The Eagles, to me, right now, are the class of the NFC for sure.
Yeah.
I like Dallas, I think, more than
Dallas
some
looked
people
good.
do.
Dallas looked good today.
I just think when they're really, really hitting on all cylinders, they can be a dangerous team. And I know Dallas has been disappointment after disappointment every season, and I don't love McCarthy as a head coach, but they have a couple studs on that defense. You know, Micah Parsons is a game changer. Dak looked pretty good today. They have weapons when everything gets going. They have Gallup. I think Dallas is tough. It's hard. It's hard for me. I'm not afraid of the Packers. I'm not ever afraid of the Packers. How many times do we have to see the same story with them, even if they do get it together this year? I'll always be afraid of the Bucs just because I know they look awful right now, but Tom Brady's Tom Brady, and they do have weapons, and the defense is good. I don't buy Minnesota. So, yeah, I mean, the Niners Philly's the only team that I would be like, they might get steamrolled by them. But the division's going to be interesting to me. It really is. I think the Cardinals are kind of garbage. I think the Rams are garbage. But I can see Seattle sticking around and winning 10 games. I can. So the Niners have to take care of their business on their end, too, and they have to do it. They're talented enough to do it. If you told me, Brian, the Niners finished, what do they have, 4 losses? If they finished 12-5, I'd be like, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me they finished 10-7, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me 9-8, I wouldn't be surprised. I have no idea with this team. None. Absolutely none. But one thing you mentioned too, like in terms of the expectations, you just made a huge trade for at the running back position, top 3 difference maker. He's unbelievable when he's healthy. So yeah, you're going for it. And you have guys like Kittle and Williams. They don't have that long left. They really don't. Couple years, the way Kittle plays, that he's going to be able to play at this level. Well, if you get 2 or 3 good more years out of him, elite years out of him, you're happy.
Yeah.
They have to win now. This is a win now team. So I agree with that for sure. And you also mentioned Brandon Ayuk. He is really coming into his own. His last 3 games, Brian, 11 targets, 8 catches, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. 11 targets, 7 catches, 82 yards, no touchdowns. And today, we're recording this on a Sunday, obviously. So in week 8, 6 targets, 6 catches. He caught all his targets, 81 yards in the score that he caught from McCaffrey. Yep. And he looks like he's getting open. He looks fast. He looks reliable. He looks like he's really coming along that he can be like a 1A type guy. Again, when you add him with Kittle and Debo and McCaffrey, how don't you score 30 points a game? Right. How don't you do it?
Right. And that's
it's exciting.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It's exciting. And we'll see again. Talk to me in a month, but today was a good sign anyway, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
Yeah, honestly, what Ayuk looks like to me is the number 1 wide receiver, right? And I know that we're paying Debo a ton of money, and I get that, but you look at Debo and you go, Debo is an offensive weapon, and I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but that is the value that he brings to this team. He brings this idea of positionless football, which Christian McCaffrey also brings. So now all of a sudden you've got a movable chess piece in Debo Samuel, and then you add a second one in Christian McCaffrey, and you create all kinds of hell for opposing defensive. There's no telling where either one of those guys is going to line up, and wherever they line up, they are elite. Right at that spot, even when you send Christian McCaffrey out wide, he's an elite pass catcher. Like he just is. He's an elite pass catcher. His only problem is he's short. I honestly, I don't know how his dad is. His dad was like over 6 feet tall, right?
Yeah,
it's like crazy to me.
Pretty sure.
It's crazy to me that Christian doesn't even tip the scales at 6 foot. But regardless, he's elite there, right? And then even if you bring Debo into the backfield, he has proven to be elite there as well. So now like I said, you've got these 2 movable chess pieces, and then you've got Brandon Ayuk, who is a true number 1 wide receiver. He runs phenomenal routes. He's got those long arms. His hands are good, right? He's got some drops, but he catches the majority of the balls that come his way. He's shifty with the ball in his hands. He's great after the catch. He is all of these things. And so, honestly, I think he is the X receiver in this offense. And then McCaffrey and Debo are kind of interchangeable wherever you want them on the within the formation. And so, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, they're gonna give him his 5th-year option. That will be a decision they have to make at the end of this year.
I would hope so.
Not hard to see them doing that. It'll be interesting to see if they try and sign him long term within the kind of money that they're paying Debo, the kind of money that they're paying Kittle, right? The kind of money that they're paying McCaffrey. Although I think McCaffrey will restructure after this year because only $1 million of that contract is guaranteed, and so it really anyway because they would turn that into signing bonus and it would lower cap hits for the 49. Like it works for both sides. And so I would expect that. And then again, you're going to be giving Nick Bosa probably north of $30 million a year. You've got all of these things that are happening. So it'll be interesting to see from a roster building perspective if Ayuk remains a 49er long term, or do they look to maybe flip him for to recoup some draft capital? I hope not.
Yeah,
I hope not, because there's no one else on this roster that could take over for what he provides them.
And he's the type of dude.
He's been awesome.
And you look at like a Christian Kirk, for example, got paid a ton. Ayuk may not be a guy, and I don't know if he's known nationally. He's probably not somebody that I don't know. Really. People play like fantasy football that people would think like, oh, he's a legit receiver, but he is. And I think if he ever hit the open market, you would see that. I think he would get paid.
Sure.
And I think he probably knows that. Like if you put him on a team, like, my God, like imagine if he was on like the Chiefs or something, he would put up big numbers or a more pass heavy team. He really would put up really, really serious numbers. I think he's doing it this year. He's probably, if he stays in this trajectory, going to be about 80 catches, 1,000 yards, maybe 8 or 9 touchdowns. And when you consider all the mouths this team has to feed, that's really good. And I think he can go to another team and be a 90, 100 catch guy. And I think he's that. I think he's 100%. That good. I really do. 100%. So I think he's going to get paid somewhere. And it is interesting. They should pick up his option and then kind of see where you go from there. So what is that? 2 years? Maybe they move on from Kittle. Maybe they find money elsewhere if Debo breaks out, or I'm sorry, if Ayuk breaks out.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see, but it's a good problem to have right now. But again, they have.
Oh, for sure.
Brian, we talk about like all these people like, oh, they're so good. This is a good problem to have. They got to put it together on the field. They're still 4-4 at the end of the day, dude.
Right. There's no reason this team should be 4-4.
Right. I mean,
no.
You should, you're playing the Falcons and the Bears. You shouldn't be 4-4. You lose to the Chiefs. Great. I thought Denver might have been a loss anyway, even though Denver sucks, but like, we didn't know that. Fine. You got to be better than 4-4. And in the second half of the season, they have to play that way.
Yeah. At the beginning of the season, I predicted 6-2 going into the bye. And then they lost 2 of the games that I anticipated that they would win, which was the Bears and the Falcons. Yeah. I thought that they would. I think I picked them to lose to the Chiefs, and I think I picked them to. I believe I picked them to lose to the Broncos again, preseason starting, right?
Right.
So it's really those two losses to the Bears and Falcons, which are really inexcusable. But let's also say the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons.
Isn't that crazy?
They beat that, by the way, the end of that Panthers game. Yikes. DJ Moore, my man.
Before we go, I want to talk about stupid coaching decisions.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Because I'm watching all the games and like, so the first one I'm going to talk about is this Rams thing. So they clearly were folding up and going home at the end of the game. 2 minutes left. They're running the football. You're down 31-14. Why in God's name on the last play of the game would you throw a screen past to Cooper Kupp? Why? And he got hurt. And I don't think he's seriously hurt.
Got his ankle rolled up.
Yeah, I hope not, because he's on my fantasy team, but one of my fantasy teams. But that's the dumbest thing in the world. If you're punting there and you have zero chance to come back, why is your best player even on the field? Just stupid. And the other thing I saw today was the Colts started Sam Ellinger, right? They benched Matt Ryan. Ellinger comes in, he's young, he can move. So the Colts, they played pretty crappy on offense, but they were in a really good spot to win the game. And at this point, I think it was 6-6. And they do a little shovel pass to Pittman, and he's tackled on it was like the 1-inch line. Like he was just barely in. So again, you have this mobile quarterback, right? Just sneak the ball, man. Just get it and fall forward. If he doesn't get it, just do it again. They run a shotgun run and lose 2 yards and kick a field goal, and they end up losing the game. The defense blew it at the end, but still, you should have never been in that position. Frank Reich is a moron. I think he's one of the most overrated coaches in the league. He just makes stupid decisions week after week. You just see these coaches it's so infuriating if they don't try not to outsmart themselves. I just miss good old fashioned football. The ball's on the 1 yard line or the half yard line. Just sneak it in. Just score. Why are you in a shotgun or just sneak the ball in? You're going to score. It's just infuriating watching some of these games.
I was going to say, Kyle Shanahan called a QB sneak on, it was 3rd and 1, but really it was like 3rd and 1.9, right? That was the longest 1 yard I've ever seen in my life. And they nailed it, right? Because that's Jimmy Garoppolo's elite at quarterback sneaks. But
great sneaker.
Yeah. but yeah, the other thing that, speaking of coaching decisions, again, why is Christian McCaffrey continuing to get handoffs when the game is essentially over? Why are you running him into the line?
Yep.
Why? You have Ty Davis Price. You've got, let's get Jeff Wilson Jr. Give Jeff Wilson Jr. the ball, right? Get Christian McCaffrey out of the game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, let's get Mooney Ward out of the game, right? He's still ailing a little bit. There's some things where I'm like, come on, guys. I know that as fans, we are not football coaches, and football coaches say football players play football, right? And I get that. But there's something about for a coach like Kyle Shanahan, who is as risk averse as he is, to continue to see some of these decisions about players being in when the game is, over, essentially, it just kind of baffles me a little bit. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Frank Reich could lose his job at the end of this season because they have been horrendous. They have been they are and so yeah, that's tough. But this is a 49ers podcast, so I think we've done our fair share of trying to hold Kyle Shanahan accountable. And to end the show, I just want to say kudos to Kyle, kudos to D'Amico. This was a well-coached game. There were some aspects of it that, I was a little passive aggressive on the timeline, especially in the first half with some of those penalties. Some of the decisions that were being made, again, kicking that field goal, although, that McCaffrey incompletion probably made going for it, impossible. But, I liked to see a little bit more aggression out of Kyle. And then I liked to see D'Amico's adjustments at half. And I think it made all the difference in the world. And you ended up with a 31-14 victory over the same old sorry ass Rams. So, hey, kudos to Shanahan and his staff. Go under the bye, get healthy. I'm hoping Armstead is back after the bye. Hopefully we see Jason Verrett after the bye. And they're going to go against a gunslinger in Justin Herbert, and they're going to have their work cut out for them. So that offense is going to have to come to play just like they did today.
Definitely. But it's at least, hey, like I said, Brian, we'll take it. It's a good feeling, at least going into the bye, a good taste in our mouths. So
absolutely,
we will take it. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. For Brian and Zain, this is Al.